Dr. Yash Naidoo, dentist, doctor, lawyer, medico-legal consultant, and the host of Why Did I Become a Doctor? Dr. Yash, welcome to the Smart Up podcast.
Thanks for having me, Elton. It's such a relief to be sitting on the other side. I know how difficult it is to be a host of a podcast and all the thoughts that have to go through your mind at one time when you're speaking to somebody. So it's such a cool feeling to be on the other side and not have to think about all that. So thanks for having me, man. And one correction, you said doctor also. And the medical doctors will be quick to point out that that's not correct. It's dentist, lawyer, dental legal consultant, and host of a podcast.
Perfect. So why aren't dentists doctors or doctors dentists?
No, there's this whole debate on one of the more popular shorts of my podcast on TikTok is the whole debate is around that. Are doctors dentists and dentists doctors? It depends who you ask. We've got the title. Let me just say that. So you can call me Dr. Naidoo, but I'm happy for you to call me Yash also.
Contentious. Leave it at that.
Yeah, leave it at that.
So I don't know if the dentists think they're doctors, but we'll leave it at that.
Leave it at that.
So I think my first question is, what do people think?
Yeah.
You know, I've known you for a few years now. 6 years ago, we went to you. You were a lawyer, helped us with a couple of things. And through the evolution of Yash, studying, qualifying as a dentist, becoming a lawyer, moving on from a lawyer to a medico-dental-legal, how do you go through that and what people think in that career change in those pivots? Because each one takes 5, 6, 7 years to qualify.
It depends who you ask, Elton. If you had to ask my uncle, for example, my father's brother, you'd say I'm mad. Why did I spend so much time studying for things? I should have just joined him and taken over the business. That's what he said when I told my family that I'm leaving dentistry to become a lawyer. If you ask lawyers, they would say this guy's mad also, because it's all about perspectives, right? So when I moved from dentistry to become an attorney, a few attorneys that I know said to me, what's wrong with you? You know, do you want to come and work hard? Because being a lawyer is really hard work. You know, you're working constantly 24/7. There's always deadlines and stress. Do you sure you want to leave that cushy dental job and do all of this? And then if you ask a dentist, they'll say, brilliant, leave dentistry. There's so many dentists I've spoken to, they're like, yeah, Yash, it's not worth it. You made a brilliant choice, leave. So it really depends on who you're asking. And it's amazing, you know that saying about the grass being green on the other side story? I've lived that firsthand, because it really is true, right? You know, it just depends on your perspective. And so that's what people think. Some people think, this guy's super sharp. You think I just spoke to you off camera now. You said I'm the most serious guy, one of the most serious people you know, because I was telling you I'm not really serious, because I come with my disclaimers and things. I think you think that kind of thing about me.
Yeah.
Yeah, this depends who you ask, yeah? That's what people think.
My main question, I suppose, is how do you get through what will other people think? You know, when we're kids, the first thing your parents tell you is don't do this. Your friends say don't do that. All people think. And that in modern day society, I think a lot of people don't do things because they say, oh, what if people think I fail? What if I embarrass myself? What if? But it's based on other people's thinking. You jump through all those career hoops to what you are today. Is it an ultimate goal you have in your mind? And how did you get rid of what other people think in that progression?
So I think aging played an important role in that, because honestly, when I was younger, I still consider myself young, I used to care about what people thought. I mean, I think it's a natural thing. Maybe it's not.
How old are you now?
I'm 37.
37.
So I used to admire people who, and I still do, who actually just go on about things and get stuff done without worrying about what people think. But I know that's easier said than done. I used to have this debate with one of my senior partners, not my partner. He was a partner at the firm that I was at, Michael Cronus. And I used to always say to him, Michael, you can't tell me you don't care about what people think about you. And he would say to me, no, I don't care at all. I said, but if you didn't care at all, then you wouldn't even worry about your reputation. You wouldn't worry about what sort of publications and things you put out there. And then he had to concede. He said, well, look, to an extent everybody has to worry about what people think, right? But what was your question? How did I handle it?
How did you get through that?
Look, personally, I didn't think that anybody would. So let's take a few steps back, right? So I became a dentist. I studied dentistry. It was 5 years of dental school where I just scraped through, made it, but I passed every year. because my old man was funding the thing and I didn't want to disappoint him, right?
And I think just for the audience's benefit, you surrounded your family, your wife, are all in healthcare.
Yeah. So I was almost, definitely. Lots of doctors. There weren't dentists in the family at the time. My dad's an attorney. Mom's a teacher. But I got through the dentistry, scraped through it. I got into it for the wrong reasons. We can get into that if you want to. But once I got out and I started practicing, so in that first year of community service, 6 months into it, I knew I couldn't do this for the rest of my life. I wish I could, but I didn't. So I personally didn't bother what people really thought. I made a decision to say I'm gonna actually do law, and I told my old man, Dad, I'm changing to law, and all he said to me was, "Yeah, look, you're going to be the one paying for your school fees now. So the only advice I can give you is study hard, do really well, and get into a big white law firm." Those were his words, right?
And you worked for 2 of the top 5 law firms.
Yeah, I ended up. Yes, I did my articles and became an associate at Norton Rose Fulbright, which was at the time one of the so-called Big 5 law firms in the country and a international law firm. And also did a brief stint at ENS, which is Africa's largest law firm, as an associate there. Then went back to Norton Rose. But yeah, so I took my dad's advice. I did really well and got into one of those firms and never looked back. What other people thought about me didn't really factor into it. It was actually a very selfish decision because I wanted to be content, and doesn't matter what other people think. It's not going to affect my feeling of contentment.
And I think that's very rare. I don't think you realize how rare that is.
Yeah.
Most people are walking around worried about what other people will think of them if they fail, embarrassed, don't succeed. And from the lawyer, you've become a medico-legal, dental legal consultant.
Yeah.
What does a day in your life look like as working for MPS?
Yeah, no, it's a really fun. I love what I do. I see it as a genuinely a privilege. There's not many people that find themselves in my position. What I do is I wake up in the morning, log onto the computer. There's a screen there, and there's all these new cases that have been populated by our admin team. And when I say new cases, what it is doctors, dentists, healthcare professionals, they write into us and they say, "I need your help." So now they can need our help with either a complaint that they've received at their practice. They can ask us for advice on, look, a patient wants copies of their records. Am I allowed to disclose this? They can say, there's a dispute between 2 parents and now the child's stuck in the middle. Who do I treat? All sorts of things. They come to us for medico-legal advice. They come to us when they've got complaints. And a big part of it is they come to us when they've got professional complaints at the regulator. That's the Health Professions Council. So let me run it by you. This is what happens, right? So a patient goes to a doctor or a dentist, is not happy with the treatment. They have a couple of options. They can complain directly to the doctor, or they can say, let me go online and go to the Health Professions Council of South Africa, which is the body that regulates us as healthcare professionals, and I can lodge a complaint there formally. And then the HPCSA is obliged to investigate because their mandate is to protect the public and to guide the professions. So they will gather all the information they need and they will write to a doctor and say, "Dr. Naidoo, you've received a complaint from Miss Lindy or Mr. Lindy or Mr. Lau. Please give us your explanation."
And this is way worse than a bad Google review, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, think about it, when you get that letter or that email from your professional regulator and they say you've got a 40-day deadline, please give us, because I see it on a daily basis, I might be a bit desensitized to it. I try to remind myself all the time not to be desensitized. But that clinician's life almost comes to a standstill because nobody gets into healthcare wanting to make a patient unhappy or have a complaint, right? But when you get that letter from your regulator, it hits you here. And all sorts of things go through your mind as a clinician. Should I have done this? What's wrong with that patient? Why didn't they come and tell me? And so that's where we come in. So the doctor will write to us and say, "Hey, Yash, I've got this complaint." Well, they say, "Hey, MPS, I've got this complaint. Can you guys please help?" And then we take it from there. I meet with them, speak to them, reassure them. We figure out how we're going to respond together, what we're going to put in, what we're going to leave out, all sorts of things. And we meet with lawyers. So I'm like the bridge between the clinician and the lawyer. So I make sure that the clinician is not misleading the lawyer and vice versa. because sometimes that can happen. So yeah, it's really fun. It's such a privilege.
And I've seen you stand on stage, give many lectures, many talks. So dentists generally don't have a big public audience. Lawyers are in small boardrooms. What is it like standing in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people the first time giving a talk with the mindset that you've come through? I mean, people don't understand that evolution to be able to not have sweaty palms,
Yeah.
to not stutter.
You said the first time, right? I'm even talking now. I'm still nervous to this day before I get on a show. I've got an Apple Watch, right? Before I get on the stage where there's like hundreds of people on, my watch will notify me. They'll say, high heart rate warning. You've been sitting still and your heart rate is higher than normal, right? And I still feel a bit of that imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing here? Why do people want to listen to me? But how I've overcome that, or how I've learned to deal with that, is to speak to other people who've done it. So most recently at the SADA Congress, I was on the main plenary on stage with Alistair McKelvey, who's an old timer. He's been doing it for 20 years, right? And I asked him before we both got on stage, I said, Alistair, do you get nervous? And he said, yeah, still get nervous to this day. And I said, you know what, that actually makes me feel so much better. And I've read these, you read these inspirational memes and things online and all that stuff. And one of these things I've read that said, if you're not getting nervous, it means you don't care. So it's a good thing that you actually care about what you're doing. So that I use that as self-motivation. I don't know whether it's the right or it's the wrong advice. And so I actually hate public speaking. I genuinely, I can use the hate word. I don't like it, but I know it's a necessary part of my...
You're good at it now.
Well, thank you, if you say so. I mean, when I look at myself, I can find so many things to criticize and nitpick. It's a process, it's a journey. I'll never be great, but I'll just get better, I think, yeah.
So in getting better, if you look at, you're obviously quite still involved with dentistry, being in the Medico-Legal space.
Yeah.
Are you excited for dentistry in South Africa, the future of it? Are you nervous around it? I don't know how close you're sticking to current technology trends, how many people are qualifying from varsity, going through. What's your opinion on dentistry?
I'm excited, yeah. You see, in my line of work, right, because I'm always dealing with complaints, people are always coming to me when there's a problem. It's very easy for me to be disillusioned with the whole career and the whole profession and industry. But the beauty is, by virtue of the fact that I have to speak at these congresses and things like that, I find myself surrounded by sort of the cream of the crop or the top of the tops, right? And those people are inspirational. Because when you surround yourself with those kinds of people, you see that they're not looking for reasons to complain. They're looking for solutions, right? And I can tell you, dentistry in South Africa, there's so much potential for massive growth. And when I say growth, I'm not talking about the perspective only from the clinician's perspective. I'm talking about it from a patient-centric perspective. There's going to be so much access to quality oral health care in this country, brought about by technology and brought about by these really enthusiastic clinicians that are always trying to upskill themselves. So yeah, I think it's great.
And do you see the same in broader healthcare? Do you play in that space?
Look,
part of MPS? Do you see healthcare getting better and better and actually more affordable? I think that's one of the biggest challenges people have, is the cost of healthcare.
Yeah, I do. Call me naive, but I genuinely do. I think that just if you've got motivated people, they will find a way. And the beauty of this country, personally, I feel, is its people. We are, I hate to use that word because it's so overused, right? Resilient. But we are a resilient nation, and we have positive, warm, friendly people. That's the beauty of South Africa. And that extends into healthcare. And of course there's problems, of course. But I'm optimistic that, with people, even like you, who are not really a healthcare professional, but you're in the industry, right? There's enough people like you and the likes of the Dr. Lindy's of this world and, all these people we know of. And I'm dropping his name because we're sitting in his practice right now. And he's my cousin. But there's enough of those people to keep it going. And I genuinely believe in that.
Okay. And a little bit of a harder question. What do you think of what the government wants to do with healthcare?
Look, I think that universal healthcare or access to universal healthcare is an ideal, which I agree with. I totally agree with that. It's all about implementation. I mean, that's as far as I'll go. I think that the idea is right, but potentially the implementation could do with a relook.
And I agree with you. I don't think any human should not have healthcare around them or to be able to,
Yeah.
what's the words I'm looking for? I don't say not be sick, but be able to look after themselves with regards to modern day healthcare. And just because you can't afford it, you could potentially die. It's not something I think is civil in modern day society.
Yes, and I believe that there's enough money for that. I mean, we've got money for things like national dialogues and things where we talk. You spend 20 million to speak to one another. So there's enough money. It's just about using it correctly, and I think we can just blossom. Yeah.
And I know you use your voice as Yash in his personal capacity in Why Did I Become a Doctor? That is something you're passionate about. And as I'm speaking to you here, I realize through all your choices, it's all about helping people. If I look at your podcast, it's about helping people, giving people access to information, things that they may need to know to move their life forward.
Well, I should hire you as my PR person, Elton, because, look, I did all these things because I wanted to do them. I was just interested in them. But you're right. Look, it's about adding value. Like, I feel like if I want to do something, there must be value somewhere. On the podcast, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but as a lighty, I always wanted to like record myself for some reason. I remember the first Windows computer I had was, I think, Windows 3.2, just before 95. And then 95 came out, Windows 95, 1995. And we had this little Sony mic that we could plug into the computer, and me and my cousins would sit and try and record ourselves and be like fake radio hosts, you know? I don't know, I was just interested in that. So I always wanted to do something like that, but I never knew how I would frame it in a way that would add value. And just recently I discovered that, okay, here's a space where I can add value, and let's do it that way. Yeah.
Because if I look at your general nature, knowing you 6 years, it's always how do you help another human? How do you move something forward? It's as much as you say you were selfish in your career choices. I look at a lot of the things that you do, and even the time that you spend with people, a lot of it is helping them move forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
And I think your last podcast is skyrocketing. It's over 3,000 views. Does that make you feel good that it's gaining traction, that people are watching, they're getting value?
Yeah.
Because that's quite a long journey.
Yeah. Well, I learned the hard way to get excited about views, because I think my second or third episode with a surgeon from Botswana, Dr. Capus Modimo, who is my good friend, he gave a speech at my wedding. That video just blew up. It blew up in Botswana specifically. And so I thought, oh yes, this podcast's on the way to, you know,
it's going to
skyrocket, right? But it just turned out that people were really interested in that episode. The next few episodes didn't get that much traction. But look, it excites me, even if my least viewed video has a couple of hundred views. But even on those things, when somebody writes to me and says, Yash, this is so valuable, like this really inspired us, this person is amazing. I mean, I get messages from dental students, medical students, random people on LinkedIn saying, this really added value. And now that I speak about it, Elton, I never thought about this, but you reminded me of something. So when I was studying law, right, I did it through UNISA. And I used to have these study notes where I would go through past papers for like years worth of past papers. And what I would do is I would find all the common questions and answers and just write them and answer them. And that was my way of studying. But what I did was I took all of those things and I put them online. It was a thing called Study Notes Wiki or something. You must remember UNISA is a huge university. There's people from all over Africa that enroll and study. And I would get these emails, because at the bottom of my study notes, I'd put my Twitter handle. I would get emails, I'd get tweets from people like in Zimbabwe and people far north saying, Yash 0505, your notes were brilliant. Because of you, we got through. And that used to just make me feel so good, eh? Like
helping people.
People have told me sell it and stuff. And I said, no, why would I sell it? I'm using it to study. Those kind of things just made me feel so good. It just stroked the ego and I loved it.
Good human. Good human. So if I want to ask, it's quite a loaded question. So it's 4 questions in one.
Yeah.
Each area of your life has had challenges.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to speak. I'd like you to talk around the biggest challenge you had in dentistry, in being a lawyer, in being in MPS, and then in being Yash. What are the biggest challenges you found in each of those?
Shoof. Dentistry, yeah.
And the reason I asked the question for the audience is a lot of people in healthcare wish they had changed or wish they'd done something different or want to double down on their career because they love it so much. So I thought, let's go through some of those challenges, because you said earlier the grass isn't always greener, right? And you on your third, fourth iteration of career.
Yeah. Okay, so dentistry, right? We have to take it all the way back to high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I used to play cricket. I went to DHS. I had aspirations of becoming a cricketer, but as I got older, lost interest. I was more interested in partying and going out, and my then girlfriend at the time was now wife. So my old man told me, Yash, or Yashi as he calls me, why don't you go to England and try and get into a county cricket team and, play? He would have sent me. I said, no, Dad, I'm not interested. I think I want to do law. And now my dad was an attorney at that stage of about 2-3 decades. And he said to me, no, it's too saturated, think of something where you can start your own business. You can take it overseas. Also, if you want to, why don't you think of and your marks are good. So why don't you think of medicine or dentistry? And then that's literally what I did. I applied for medicine or dentistry. Didn't get into medicine, and got into dentistry at Tux and UWC. My old man said, no way I'm sending you to Cape Town because you're going to party too much. So you're going to go to Pretoria. Where the hell?
Most parents are worried about it.
If I'm paying for that, I don't want you going and jolling there, right? And so I went to Pretoria, and I got into dentistry for that reason. Just thumbs up. I didn't even shadow a dentist or do research about it. Just got in. And the first 2 years you're doing medicine, you're doing the same courses as the medical students. So I had quite a few medical student friends. I didn't really have many dental friends. Anyway, scraped through it. Long story short is I wasn't enjoying it. But what they would say to me is, what my lecturers would say to me is, don't worry, Yash, once you get out there, you'll find your niche and you'll start to thrive. So you won't have like supervisors looking over your shoulder the whole time. And so I said, let me make sure I pass. Because as I said earlier, old man is paying, I don't want to let him down. So I passed every year. Got into ComServe, and I got placed in Standerton Hospital in Mpumalanga. Never heard of the place in my life before, never been there. Blessing in disguise, because my first boss was Dr. Chotalal, Dr. Hemant Chotalal, who was born and bred in Standerton, and he felt a part of that community. So he cared about the unit that he ran. He made sure it was a properly run ship. It wasn't just your typical community service facility where you're just pulling out teeth until 12 p.m. You would have heard these stories, Elton, about ComServe. We would make dentures, we'd do fillings, scale and polish, general dentistry, proper. But even then, when I got there, it only took me 6 months to realize I can't do this for the rest of my life, because I was finding myself being miserable personally. I didn't enjoy the work. It was taxing physically and emotionally and mentally. And what that knocked on, and what effect that had was, I was not treating patients properly, right? And to my credit here, because I know I was being humble a bit earlier, to my credit, I had the insight to say, to take a step back and look at myself and say, this is not the person I want to be in a professional capacity. I don't want to be being rude or disrespectful to patients because I'm hating what I'm doing. So 6 months in, I decided I'm going to hit the switch to law. And then that's when I went back to the old man and said, I'm going to law. And he said, look, it's your life now. That's my only advice.
How hard is that to give up after that many years?
Not hard at all. People think it is, right? A lot of people say, yes, you're so brave, dude. Actually it's not, because I come from a privileged background where I've got 2 parents that supported me. And I knew that if I was down in the dumps, I would be able to fall back on them. But the other thing is, I had a partner, Yufti, who I knew that if I was down in the dumps, she would support me. So it was an easy decision for me to make. It wasn't.
You sound like a very heavy person on other people's shoulders.
Yeah. I'm a burden. I'm a big burden.
No, you inspire a lot of people. I've seen that firsthand.
No, so it was an easy decision. And look, I think maybe Yufti was a bit, my wife, at the time she wasn't my wife, but I think she was like, well, what's going on here? But she supported me. And what I would do is, I had the support of Dr. Chotalal, the guy I mentioned, who was my first boss. He supported me. He motivated internally for me to be able to get approved that I can study. I would take my annual leave and I wouldn't go on holidays. I used to study and write. So it was quite easy. It wasn't a difficult decision. It was a selfish decision to say, I want to make my life better for me.
So that there wasn't really a challenge in dentistry. It was more an internal aha that you didn't want to do this for 40 to 50 years.
Yeah.
So it wasn't around dentistry being challenging or the industry itself. So it's more around you. And then becoming a lawyer, what was the challenge?
Well, on the dentistry part also, there's an important thing to say is that I knew that if I'm not into it, I'm not going to put effort into making myself a better dentist. And that's what needs to happen in order to be a success, in my mind, at that stage.
I want you to repeat that because I don't think many people understand. If you're putting effort into something, you're going to get very good at it. And if you don't find that passion or can't see yourself doing it.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't want to use the word passion because it's got this sort of airy-fairy feel. People say, what's a passion? Like, I just feel like you need to be into something in order to put your blood, sweat, and tears into it, personally.
Enjoy it.
Yeah. So you have to be into it and enjoy it. That's my personal feeling. I didn't want to be that guy that's putting a lot of effort into something that I don't really feel.
In the Meta-U course, I teach people pick your shit.
Okay.
Because there's shit in everything.
Yeah.
So if you're in politics, if you're in corporate, if you're an entrepreneur, there's shit you have to do every day that you don't want to do. And you got to find the shit that you will handle the best. The one that doesn't disconnect you, that you're okay to do.
Yes. Fully agreed.
And even in the businesses I run and the things that I do, it's shit I'm willing to deal with. And there's other shit that if you came to me, that other people are like, that's a walk in the park. I never want to do that. So part of my success is being able to pick the shit I'm happy to handle.
Yes. And why I say that, firstly, I agree with you, but also why I say, I think it's important for me to mention that it was not a difficult decision for me to change. And to give the reasons why it wasn't difficult, namely my support system, which I knew was in place, is that by saying this, I'm not looking down on people that are stuck in a career that they hate, because most people don't have the luxury of saying, I want to make a 180 and I want to change. Most people have spent that 5 years in university, paid for those fees, got student loans, got responsibilities, friends, family, children that rely on them, that they have no choice but to stick in it and make it work. So I think we've got to appreciate that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of hours in a day. So 8 hours of work and 2 weekends off. There's more than enough time for the average human to pivot, even if you're in your 40s, to gain a skill with where technology is and the ability to learn and start. I think there's more than enough time in the modern day world.
Well, here's the part where I'm going to say, let's agree to disagree on this. And let me explain why. Because I heard you interviewing Mark Prati on your first interview. And you mentioned the whole everybody's got the same 24 hours, right? And I personally, maybe you'll enlighten me later, and maybe this is why I need to sign up to the Meta-U course and things like that, is that I don't think everybody has the same 24 hours. I mean, if I look at it from my perspective, I can say, yes, everybody got the same 24 hours. But there are some people that literally need to wake up at 4 a.m. to take a public transport to work, to get somewhere at 7 a.m. So those 3 hours, you and I, in our privileged position, we don't have to spend those 3 hours, but some people have no choice, right? So it boils down to circumstances. And where I learned this is that when I was studying that UNISA degree, right, and there used to be these online forums where we would share our study notes and where I would go and put them on, I would see stories from people that were doing exactly what you are advocating for, which is to change your life, right? And there would be like people in their 50s saying, I've got 3 kids that I'm putting through university. I've got to go and pick them up here. I've got to take somebody here. And I was thinking to myself as a young 20-something-year-old changing from dentistry to law, think, oh my goodness, I don't have these struggles. I have so much respect for people like that actually have real life responsibilities and adult responsibilities that they can still do that. Because honestly speaking, Elton, this is from my perspective, I don't think I would have done it if I had all those other things to juggle. I don't think I would have done it. That's genuinely it.
And maybe I'm such a firm believer. I've come through that. We grew up in extreme poverty, and I've seen many people do that. In my wife's restaurant, we had a waiter that used to wake up at that time. He would waiter. He'd probably pull an 11, 12-hour shift. And he sat with me the one day and he said, I want to become something more. And I said, what is that and where does that go to? He said, I want to become a Cisco network engineer. And he'd study in the taxi. When he got a gap, he'd write the courses. He'd look after his family and kids. And I think it was the saddest, but one of the proudest days for me. He came to me, he says, I'm a qualified Cisco CCNIE. And he moved his salary from 15 to 80. But it took him 4 years.
You see, now those are the people that inspire me.
But it's the choice. It's knowing that it's tough. But imagine giving up on a life. Imagine giving up and going, this is what my life is. That's more of to me, it's a victim mindset.
Okay.
right? You could have had that same mindset, in my opinion, being a dentist, going, I've studied it, I'm stuck in it. But what did you tell me you done? Went to work, studied extra, found a way to do it. You part of that proof.
Okay.
And that's just the way I see it. But because if you settle and you accept, you can't complain anymore. But even if you only got an hour a day, right, and that's all that lands up being, in those hours stacked to 365 hours, and you qualified and you double your income, or you move.
Yeah.
I think it's possible. I'm not saying it's easy.
Yeah.
By no means am I saying it's easy. But I do believe that each person is in control of their own destiny and the choices that they make.
I take that point. I agree. Yeah. And then moving on to the law, right? The biggest challenge for me moving to law is that I knew my salary was going to drop literally by half in the first 2 years. Because when you do articles, you get paid peanuts. You know, at a big firm, you get paid better than the rest of the industry. But it's still relatively peanuts compared to a ComServe dentist. And remember, by the time I left, I was a full-time dentist in the state. So I had, I had enough money. But again, not difficult because I knew I had the support system. So, yeah. And then getting into to law, my goal was to become actually a patent lawyer. It had nothing to do with dentistry or healthcare at all. I used to be this guy that would be scrolling on Twitter, reading about Apple patents, because I was an Apple fanboy. And I would look at, when you file a patent, you file it years in advance, right? Because it's a technology that you're trying to protect in the future. And so there's websites dedicated to these patents of Apple and all the other companies where you can have a sneak peek into the future, right? So I thought I wanted to be a patent lawyer. And so that was my goal. But when I got to Norton Rose, on the first day of orientation, they took us around the floor that I would be working on, which was the 7th floor litigation insurance department. I'm thinking, why are they putting me in litigation insurance? Like, I have no idea about insurance or litigation. And as I'm getting myself the tour, somebody's taking me on a tour, I walk past a cubicle of one of these candidate attorneys, because they used to put all the candidate attorneys on the floor, and all the partners and things would get offices, right, on the outside. And I walked past this cubicle and I saw a dental chart. You would have seen these things in all the practices that you visit. It's just teeth, like the 4 quadrants and teeth. So I stopped there and I asked the guy, dude, what are you doing with the dental chart there? Aren't you an attorney? So he said, no, he's a candidate attorney. But one of their clients in the insurance litigation department is an indemnity organization that defends doctors and dentists. So he's representing a dentist on the instructions of that indemnity organization. And I think it probably was dental protection at the time. And so he needs to know about dentistry in order to be able to take instructions from a dentist and to be able to help them. And then I realized, okay, these guys got a plan for me, even though I didn't have a plan. And that's exactly what happened. So they put me in that department where I would be consulting with doctors and dentists and things like that. And I'll never forget one of my first consults as a young junior candidate attorney, not even a lawyer at that stage. My boss, Maria Filippidis, she said to me, and she's a very senior insurance litigation lawyer who I have a lot of respect for. She said to me, Yash, you're going to sit quietly and listen. The associate is going to lead this consultation. The dentist is going to give instructions to the associate. You're going to sit quietly and don't say anything. But if you pick up any red flags in what the dentist is telling the lawyers, because we are lawyers, we don't understand dentistry, and vice versa, then flag it. And that's exactly what I did in that first consult. I'll never forget it, because the dentist, and I don't want to say deliberately, but the dentist didn't give correct instructions to the attorney. And I just jumped in and I said, sorry, doc, can I just repeat this for a second? If you take this to the Health Professions Council, where there are doctors and dentists on those panels in the committee, do you think they'll buy it? And then the dentist said to me, actually, you're right. I don't want to, divulge the details, but essentially that was my role, even at that early stage. And now, where I find myself at medical and, dental protection, it's the same role I play. I'm the intermediary. I hold the hand of the doctor when they are in trouble. We have discussions one-on-one, and when the lawyers are involved, we make sure that everybody's on the same page. And I love it. It's a privilege. Yeah.
So what was the challenge then, being an attorney?
Oh, the challenge...
I want to stop you there. When I met you 6 years ago,
yeah.
You walked into the boardroom, we came to you for an opinion piece. It was my only business dealing with you, but you were professional. Your service was ridiculous. I saw the hours that you pulled to put the work together. From then, it was aspirational to know that you crossed careers, and this is 6 years ago, to being able to do that level of work. And I looked at it going, wow, you're on an amazing career trajectory being in one of the top 5 law firms.
Yeah.
But you moved.
Yes. So I think it's also important to pause and mention that I didn't have everything figured out, right? So you must remember, even when I got into law, as I said, I wanted to be a patent lawyer. I didn't have this grand master plan to become a medical healthcare defense lawyer, right? So actually we ended up meeting by chance because Norton Rose saw that in me, right? And then I found that niche and I started doing it, right? So that's the first thing. But the second thing is, as an attorney, you won't know this because you'd only see me in the light of a healthcare lawyer. I would have to do other sorts of litigation work also. So not only healthcare space. I would do some commercial stuff, some other insurance related things, sometimes even, things that weren't interesting to me, right? And so I was enjoying it. It's fine. It's great. Stressful, fun, all that stuff.
Hours?
The hours were shocking, right? So I used to think that I was busy as a dentist, but the work never ends. You're working constantly. When I would go on holiday, look at my phone, keep my email on, respond to emails. The work just piles up. You don't just...
Because in that space, a crisis is a crisis.
Yeah.
You can't refer to go to the dentist down the road or go to another house.
Exactly.
They're your client.
Exactly. And I thought, and this is where my ego came in, right? When I was at these big law firms, my goal was basically to become a partner. That was the goal. It wasn't to be, I didn't want to say, I want to add value in this space or that space. I just wanted to be able to tell people that I'm a partner at a big law firm, like Harvey Specter, and wear a cool suit and just be cool.
You did have a cool suit.
Yeah. I mean, I wore that same suit every day.
But it was a cool suit.
Yeah. And a tie and everything. And then I realized, but that's a stupid goal to have because all I'm doing is I'm wanting to have this status symbol, right? But if I'm not really enjoying every single bit of it, is it really something that's worth aspiring to? And again, I probably would have carried on that trajectory if it wasn't for a little a coincidence or a chance thing that happened, where MPS decided during COVID in 2020 to move and get a physical local presence in South Africa. And they built an office here. And somebody from there called me and said, Yash, don't you want to join us? Because they'd seen the work I'd been doing as an attorney. They said, don't you want to join us? And I thought to myself, you know what? If I move, I get the opportunity to immerse myself in this work. So I'll only be doing that type of work. I won't be having to do the slip and trip sort of legal work and all the other insurance related things. It's an opportunity. And I saw it as a startup opportunity because it was the first time that this company was getting actually proper firm roots in the country. They had a presence for over 60 years, but they were always based in the UK. And so I took a chance because when I announced to the partners at the firm, some of them that I'm resigning and leaving, there was one in particular, I won't name him, but he knows him because he's a big supporter and ally of me, quite a well-known medical defense lawyer.
Same gentleman I went to with lunch with in the fancy boardroom up on that.
No.
So not the same lawyer I went to lunch with.
All I'll say is a guy from Norton Rose. And he said to me, Yash, you're making a mistake. You're on track here. You're taking a big risk and you're just going to be another employee. And I said to him, look, I agree with you. I can totally understand your perspective because what I'm telling you I'm going to do, even I'm not sure about it. But the worst thing that can happen from it is that I can get exposure at the company, learn how it works. And if I decide that it's not for me, I can always come back and you'll have me back, right? And he said, yeah. So, yeah, that was a difficult part for me.
Are you happier?
No regrets. Absolutely, yeah. No regrets. Moving to MPS and working there, it's the first time in my life that I actually feel part of the dental fraternity. As a dentist, I never felt part of that community. I used to attend a couple of CPDs and things, and I would be sitting at the back, just going there for CPD points, right? And not interacting with people and not engaging. But now in the position that I'm in at MPS, I just feel like, I don't know why, I think I'm contributing to the community and it just makes me feel so good and I really enjoy it. So no regrets.
So in having no regrets, tell me about Why Did I Become a Doctor podcast?
Oh, yeah. So remember earlier I told you that when we were lighties, I just always wanted to record myself and be like I think that's just stuck with me throughout life. So I've always been itching and looking for an excuse to start a podcast. Like, I had a very fast internet line at home and I have really cool like tech at home, but nothing to use it for. So I was looking for an excuse, right? And I always knew I wanted to do a podcast. The question was, what was the thing that's going to add value, right? And a couple of years ago, after I joined MPS, it just clicked to me. And it's also inspired by my own self-questioning. Why did I become a doctor, a dentist, right? And why did I leave? And so I decided that let me speak to doctors and dentists and whoever and just find out what made them get into their career and where they are, what they're doing, what's the plan going forward. Because I feel like it's important, if you're going to get into this profession or this industry, that you must know what you're getting yourself into. And if these conversations that I have with people that have lived it and are living it, if those can, inspire or educate or whatever, the public out there and people that are thinking of getting into it, I think it would add value somehow. Also, I just think it would be it's a nice outlet. There's not many spaces where clinicians can go and speak about their careers, openly. What they've been through, yeah.
They enjoy it.
Yeah. We're always trying to, I feel like we approach healthcare from a very, dualistic type of lens, where we look at it from the patient's perspective or the doctor's perspective. We never look at it from the middle. And I feel like if we can have these conversations where we get even, the lay people to look at what doctors go through and vice versa, it'll just create more understanding and more empathy and ultimately better healthcare, hopefully. Maybe that's a naive ambition, but yeah, that's what I feel.
So before I get into my next question or statement,
Yeah.
do you sometimes feel that the average person feels a doctor is like a robot, should be on demand, should be doing, because you've said something now that, between a patient and a doctor and in between that is life. The experience that you've had across all three, do you sometimes feel that the average person just thinks a doctor is a robot?
Now, my answer might again be jaded by virtue of what I do in my day job, right? Because remember, all I'm seeing is complaints day in, day out from patients. So it might not necessarily be the real view out there, but my perception, and I can't ignore this, that I might be biased, is that patients are seeing healthcare workers as just another service in their life, right? You go to a doctor, you expect them to treat you as a doctor, give you whatever needs to be given, and sort you out. It's like, hiring whatever, a plumber or an electrician.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
They perceive it that simple.
Yes, and that's what I think the perception is. And also, I think the reality is that patients now, it used to be a paternalistic type of industry where the doctor will tell you what to do and you'll say, yes, doc, and you'll go and do it. Now patients are coming to you, they've researched things well in advance. And I genuinely believe this, that sometimes a patient knows more about a condition that they're suffering with specifically than the doctor that they might go to. Because the doctor might be a generalist, right, that sees everything. But patients actually put in effort and read about things, and they'll go and look at studies that are available online. They'll go on TikTok and they'll go on Google. And I know people will roll their eyes. Healthcare workers will roll their eyes at this. But we need to accept that patients are actually smart.
And they're serious. As you say that, I've got two friends, and both of them, one he has an ailment, and another friend of mine has a kid, and they've joined community forums, research forums, and this is a global scale because the issues that they're facing are real.
Yes.
And the answers the doctor gives them, it's not that they don't accept, they accept them, but they're saying there must be more to, they want to improve their life, they want to help their kids' life.
Yes.
So they're on part of massive global forums. They spend money traveling to go learn around this. So they do take
100%.
seriously.
100%. And Jacob Zuma's lawyer, I know it sounds very not related. Jacob Zuma's lawyer, one of his lawyers, his name is Moses Kakane, Senior Counsel, SC. He said something which made me think of healthcare workers. He said that as much as he's a senior counsel advocate, right, who represents these, huge clients, he has to have that humility to appreciate and understand that a lot of his clients are smarter than him, right? So I wish I could spread this more in the healthcare space. A lot of your patients are smarter than you, they're cleverer than you, they've got more money than you, they've researched more than you, their specific condition. So you've got to approach things collaboratively and don't just dismiss them. You know, when you hear that thing of, don't say, Dr. Google, I've got a, medical degree. I didn't get my degree on Google. It's easy to brush that off. But patients are smart and they know what's going on.
Some patients have spent a lifetime or a decade researching the issue because they just can't get rid of it.
Yes.
Live with that. It's debilitating.
Yeah. And otherwise we wouldn't see these stories like where you must have seen this recently where patients gone through many, many clinicians and then ChatGPT or something actually found the problem. And I'm not saying that ChatGPT is there to give health advice, but like AI has solved things that lots of human doctors couldn't.
And that should make it better for doctors because if AI can take away a low level of...
Yes. Embrace it. Don't fight it. Embrace it. Use it responsibly. We're talking about AI now specifically. And it'll only lead to better outcomes for both clinician and patient. Everybody wins, right?
I think it'll make the world a better place if used correctly.
Yeah.
And then I've got two things to finish off is, you started your podcast to help people inspire them or also to make them aware of going into healthcare, this is what it's going to take. Something you're quite passionate about. You're pro and you're highly proactive in promoting the healthcare industry, but you also have a little bit of caution about people that want to climb in not doing their research.
Yes.
Share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So Elton, you don't want to go to, knowing me now, how I described the dentist I was, right? I don't think you as a patient would want to come and see Dr. Naidoo, that dentist. You can disagree with me, but I think you will agree that nobody wants to go and see a dentist that's just there to get by, right? So I feel like healthcare in this country and anywhere could benefit from people getting into the industry that actually know what they're getting into and wanting to do it. It will benefit both the clinician from their own well-being as a professional, and it will benefit the public from the healthcare that they get, the service that they get. Because you want to go, personally, I want to go to a doctor that's really enjoying what they're doing. And even though they appreciate that it's not easy being a doctor, they want to be there. They're not just there to get a salary or to call people or to have people call them doctor and respect them for the status that they hold in society. So if these conversations between doctors and clinicians that I have, which are really fun, right? Because you hear a whole lot of somebody's background. People come from weird and wonderful places. If that can help educate somebody and say, look, this is something I want to get into, or actually it's something I rather don't want to do. I want to make money. I want to become a chartered accountant or I want to be an entrepreneur. I like what Elton's story was about. Then so be it. But at least it'll prevent a Yash situation. Basically, that's what I want. I don't want somebody to spend 5 years, 6 years, their dad's money or their own money and get into it and say, oh gosh, why am I here? And then we're stuck.
Almost sounds to me like it's typical Elton business person, entrepreneur. Almost sounds like an opportunity that you could create a psychometric evaluation plus a core values plus a long-term stability enjoyment chart before somebody enrolls. Because they grade you on marks when you go in. But if there was another metric or a few metrics to go and say, this is what it's about, and you filled those out, you know how likely you are to enjoy it. And vice versa. I know a few people, a friend of mine went into engineering and then became a dentist. And if he'd done that, they would have said, oh no, you're more suitable for this. So there's almost an opportunity by the sounds of it in that of seeing both sides.
Talk to me later. Give me some idea. Now that you mention it, I mean, high school syllabus, watch this podcast. Look.
Yeah, and taking all that entire data from your podcast and producing a form of evaluation that people could fill out on entering, going, this is what you're really in for. Because I've had that in many stages of my life, or many things I've tried. I'm like, oh, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And then through either grit or understanding it's still part of a long-term goal, you finish it through, but sometimes you walk away from it.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And then you being, a lot of people know you and they don't see you as the most positive person, but I see you as a very, very positive person. I look through all the changes you've had to go through, the positions you put yourself in. What is the one thing in your mind that, no matter how rough it is, how good it is, what's the thing that keeps you positive? What's that grit factor, that positive thought that drives you every day?
Elton, I actually don't know if I have an answer to that. But before we get there, you mentioned the thing about a lot of people don't see me as a positive person, right? I think it's important for my own reputation to give some context behind there, right? It's because they come to me in situations where I've got to tell them, and this is the hardest part of my job. I don't have to tell them, but
all three of your jobs, actually.
Yeah, good point. I've got to figure out a way to explain to you without offending you that perhaps you could have done something a bit differently here. You know, that's the hardest part of my job. But anyway, what keeps you positive? I don't know, Elton. I said this on a recent podcast on my show where I said I'm a recovering cynic and recovering grumpy person. I think surrounding myself with the likes of, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up, whatever, but the likes of you, the likes of the Yaks of the world, and all the people that I've had on my show thus far, and also listening to sort of podcasts and thought leaders. I'm a fan of podcasts. I actually watch podcasts and listen to them while I'm exercising and things. Is that it's all about surrounding yourselves. And I know it's not about getting an echo chamber. I'm not saying that. But looking at people that have created things and that have added value in the world and trying to figure out what made them tick and how they look at things has actually really educated me and inspired me in many ways. So I try and look and learn from other people. That's probably not the answer you're looking for, but that's just what I'm doing. Like I'm always looking for a way to improve. I don't know.
I think that's a great answer because a lot of people shut things out. The fact that your positivity comes from looking at what other people are doing and using that instead of just going, this is who I am, this is how it's built and this is going to be my life forever. The positivity from you comes from embracing what other people know and using it.
Yes.
Versus letting ego or stubbornness get in the way of going, oh, it's not my idea, hence I'm not doing it.
Yes. And also another thing, and I think Steve Jobs coined this term or whatever, but it's noise to signal ratio. Ever heard of it, Elsa?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of noise out there. So there's going to be people that come to me, and I really encourage negative feedback. I want it. As much as people think I'm being fake about it.
Constructive criticism.
Yeah.
It tells me what I'm doing wrong.
But I feel like constructive criticism, sometimes if you pitch it that way, the person feels shy to tell you what they want to tell you. I actually say, give me negative feedback. And I will put that through my noise to signal ratio because a lot of negative feedback, as you will know, is nonsense. It's not right. You know, it's just somebody's opinion that has never tried anything in their life, right? But I still want it because I want to be able to filter it out. I'd rather filter out than have to look for the constructive criticism, which is few and far between, right? So, I mean, we were talking about Kefis's episode. That one got thousands of views. There were so many negative comments on there, which I have to remind myself, don't take it to heart. People were saying, yes, you interrupt your guest all the time. Let them speak. Chill. My instinctive reaction is to say, screw you, man. What do you know? But actually, it's correct. And so to try and remind myself to have that open mind and that humility to say, thank you so much for that negative feedback. You're actually right. I'm going to take that on board and I'm going to try and improve going forward. That to me is an important part of my growth and hopefully my improvement in whatever I do.
So on the last note, being positive and knowing that you've done a few things, what's next for Yash?
No idea, Elton. I mean, you never know what can happen in this world. Eh? Like I'm enjoying the space I'm in right now. I genuinely mean it when I say it's a privilege doing what I do. There's very few people that can say that when the people that help us need help, when the healthcare workers are the ones that help us when we're in trouble, right?
Well, I remember what happened to healthcare workers in COVID, how burnt out they were.
Yeah.
They went through enormous amounts of pain and it's not like they got a big break because the world went back to normal and
yes.
Instead of working from 16 hours a day, they went back to work for 8 hours a day.
Yes, exactly. So when it makes me feel cool, honestly, when they can come to me and say, Yash, how do I approach this situation? So I don't know. Currently, I'm in my happy space. I've got a loving family. I've got a young daughter who I hope to not corrupt too much. Because there's a thing where parents always we traumatize our children some way or the other, even though you don't mean to. So hopefully I'll raise a happy, kind, and empathetic young daughter that is brave. And that's my current goal. and just to spend time with people that I enjoy spending time with, like you. You know, I told you off camera, right, that you're not the first person that's asked me to come on a pod. And I usually say no because I hate speaking about myself. And the only reason I'm here is because I actually just want to have a chat with you. You know, you're in Dubai now, Habibi, so I hardly get to see you. And it was a good opportunity to just have a chat with you.
And I appreciate it.
And I did have my T's and C's. I said I'm not going to talk about work and all that stuff. But thank you for having me. And yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And where do people find you?
Oh, they can find me on YouTube. It's Why Did I Become a Doctor South Africa, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, same thing. And then Instagram, Dr. Yash Naidoo, and yeah, all over. That's about it actually. Yeah. And then obviously at work, I'm at MPS South Africa. So that's where they can find me. But don't come looking for me. And you know, when my phone rings, right, and it's a doctor that I've never heard from for a while, the first thing I ask is, hey, doctor, what's wrong?
Do you get anxiety when the phone rings?
I kind of do, yeah. I'm like, oh no, what's happened here? And I always have to do this little song and dance where I say, doc, when somebody calls me, it's usually bad news. So please tell me you're not in trouble. And then they'll say yay or nay. But yeah, no, that's
I feel
it.
better when I phone you now because I never phone you with bad news.
Oh, definitely. You know, when you're calling me, it's like, you're trying to trouble me to come on a podcast or
Do something. Yeah, let's go forward.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Anything else you want to close off with?
No, I mean, how's things going on your side? How's Dubai and everything? You having fun?
I am.
Yeah.
You know, trying to scale businesses, change everything that you know, leaving a lot behind, but at the same time gaining a lot. At 47, you've got to try and test yourself. And I've got a great team behind me in a few businesses. And that's what am I capable of? And I'm okay to fail. I'm okay to go there, try, learn something new. What I did realize is we're at the tip of Africa and not many people are coming here. And what I mean by that is being in Dubai for a while now, the access to the people and the knowledge and the understanding is unbelievable. Those people aren't coming to South Africa. If they are, you're lucky to catch them on a Cape Town holiday.
Okay.
But the hubs of the world, and now I finally understand your Londons, Tokyos, New Yorks, where super high performers are going to get things done and spending time. That's been an eye-opener, a really big eye-opener. And it's something I've always gotten to where the opportunity is instead of waiting for, you can't even call it an opportunity to land on your lap. You've got to drive opportunity. And that's been quite nice, being able to go there and drive opportunity from it instead of hoping it's going to come this way.
No, I love it. No, it's good. I would wanted to say I wish you well, but you don't even need well wishes, man. So you just go and do it.
I appreciate it nonetheless.
Sweet.
I appreciate it nonetheless.
Thanks for having me, man.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, eh?